We are all about helping you grow as smart business owners and thoughtful leaders, and so are our friends at SignatureFD. SignatureFD is a wealth management company that believes people shouldn't have to wait until retirement to enjoy the wealth they've worked so hard to earn. Using their unique trademarked process, Net Worthwhile, SignatureFD helps clients integrate and activate their wealth in 4 key categories: grow, protect, give, and live, helping their clients enjoy their wealth now while feeling secure about their future. You can go and take the first step by discovering your net worthwhile with their free quiz. You can find it at signaturefd.com/mygpgl. That's signaturefd.com/mygpgl. The link's in today's show notes. Now, let's get back to our conversation.
Welcome to System and Soul, the podcast focused on the human energy that runs your business. I'm Chris White, along with my co-host,
Benj Miller.
All right, you guys ready? Here we go. Jake, drop that beat.
3, 2, 1.
Here we go!
System and Soul. Today we got some fun. We've got Lisa Zeeveld coming in and hanging with us. We're going to talk about team growth, about the market changes that are happening, how we think about that, our perspective around that, and about changing perspectives and how that is a key to growth and how to do it. We have some really practical things that kind of get sprinkled through here, especially at the end. So I hope you hang on and enjoy this conversation. Lisa is an amazing story with an amazing company, going from a 5-hour a week fractional assistant to the CFO of a very fastly growing company and now a very large company. So you're going to enjoy Lisa, and I think there's a lot we can learn through this conversation. So enjoy. System and Soul, welcome back. Super fun episode today. We've got Lisa Zeeveld. You've heard her name on this podcast because we've talked about her a number of times, including all the great work that they do over at Belay. But she is the CFO of Belay. I'll let you tell everyone, the world, what Belay does, Lisa. But welcome. Thanks for coming and hanging out with us today.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'm so excited to be here and spend time with you. And just share a little bit with your audience about who Belay is, and then what's been on my mind.
Yes, we've got to hit what's on your mind. But first, cue us up. How did you become the CFO of Belay?
Yeah, super fun story. So about 11 years ago, I'm a mom of 2 phenomenal kids. And, once they were born, really felt like it was time for me to somewhat, quote unquote, retire. I was going to be a full-time mom. But at the same time, I'm super career driven. And so I was raising them and then kind of looking for little side gigs to do here and there. And one day I got a phone call from a neighbor who said, "Hey, I work for this couple and they want to start a virtual assistant business. Can you give me 5 hours a week?" And again, my kids were number one priority. And I said, "Can I do it from home?" And she said, "Yes." And I said, "Cool, I'm going to join you." And so I started working for Belay. At the time, it was called Miles Advisory Group. Started working for them 5 hours a week. And my story is 5 turns into 50 really, really quickly because, we were in growth mode. It was a startup. And so started out truly as a virtual assistant. So I actually supported clients very similar. So let the cat out of the bag. Our current CEO, Trisha Shortino, was my neighbor, and she's the one that convinced me to come and work for our founders. And I know that she's been a guest for you guys. And so started working 5 hours a week. I really helped them create their talent acquisition and human resources policies. But my background was in finance. And so they had outsourced it all. We got to a point where we no longer needed to outsource it. And so I started supporting them, HR, kind of legal. I know enough legal to be dangerous. I say, like, I play one on TV. I get to play an attorney on TV. And then in 2015 was promoted to CFO. So I've been in this role since then.
That's amazing. And Brian and Sharon are such phenomenal people with a phenomenal story.
Yeah.
We talked to Brian was one of maybe our first 10 guests ever on the
No
podcast,
way.
like 2 or 3 years ago. And it
Yeah.
was so timely because I think he was on here talking about his book. And
Hmm.
it was probably like 2 weeks before COVID hit. So it was the most
Oh my gosh.
perfect thing ever that I could not have planned if I was smarter. So, all
Yeah.
right.
Well, and
So super
I think
fun.
too, real quickly, I think that they have a phenomenal story really as the founders, but then so many entrepreneurs are looking for an exit strategy. And so just really quickly, as they continue to promote, Trisha and I got to the point where they could truly own the business and not run the business, which helped
Right.
them ultimately exit last year. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. It's interesting because we get stuck in a trap of kind of everybody else's game. And
yeah,
it gets fed by media, it gets fed by TechCrunch, it gets fed by all these things telling us what we're supposed to
yes,
do in our business. And
right.
so I know they're passionate about owning their business, not running their business. I
Hmm.
think that is awesome for the people who want to do that. But there's also people that do
Yes.
love to run their business and can't think of anything else. So it's really important
Yeah.
to be kind of just crystallize the picture of what you want out of the business
Hmm.
so that you can make anything happen if you're focused on it. But
Exactly.
so many times we're not quite sure and we get too many other voices in our head telling us
Hmm.
what our business should look like, what we should be doing with our business. And
Yeah.
all right, Lisa, what is something that we could not Google about you? What's something fun or interesting?
Yeah, I told you when we were prepping for this that you might be able to Google it, but maybe I've done a good job of hiding it. No, so before Trisha made that ever so fateful phone call to me to ask me to join Miles Advisory Group / Belay back in the day, I was a part-time host of a regional television show where we actually built hot rods, and also was a motorcycle correspondent. So yeah, hard to believe CFO, but I can you know weld with the best of them and know how to break down a car, and it was pretty awesome.
That is really awesome. So you weren't just the host; you actually know how to do all that stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So I was super fortunate that there's a gentleman by the name of Lou Santiago, who is on Velocity Channel currently,
Yeah.
and he was my partner, and he's a phenomenal teacher. And the sort of the idea was, let's build hot rods, and really for that shade tree mechanic who wants to learn how to do things themselves. And there's also a lot of women out there that want to be next to their partner, or just really want to be, kick butt and know how to do these things themselves. And so Lou really came along and said, I think I can teach anybody, and I can teach you. And so we worked great together, and I got to learn a ton, and great people in that industry. And I think it gets skipped over way too often.
I'm one of those people that's fascinated by it, but you know, choose not to change my own oil, right? Like I don't know that I could
Sure.
actually do anything, but
Yeah.
I can get sucked into those shows like anybody. Tell me something. What's the greatest lesson that Lou ever taught you?
Oh, that's a deep one. Um, I would have to say, I grew up performing. And so, even from a young age, I wanted to be on stage, something I just get a lot of energy off of. I think I'm an extroverted introvert, so I get energy from being alone, but I love to perform. It's just something that really, I really enjoy. And so the best advice he ever gave me. So I say that before I say this is I performed all my life. I think the first time I was on stage when I was 6 years old, and we were getting ready to go on camera, and he's just such a natural. He just showed up, and he was not an actor by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, he was a Navy Seabee, and just rough, but he was so natural on TV. And I can just remember him saying, forget the camera's there. It's just me and you. Let's just do this. And all of a sudden, I just was given permission to be me, even though there were things, you have to pimp out your product and you have to talk about all these different things. But it just became a really natural conversation between him and I. And I've taken that throughout my life, here on podcasts, and every time I get an opportunity to be on stage. I was blessed to be a TEDx speaker. And I'm always hearing him in the background. I'm just here to talk to people. And I think that makes all the difference in the world, because you become so much more relatable and natural when you just forget there's a camera or there's an audience, and you're trying to perform, quote unquote. Our listeners can't see my bunny ears, quote unquote, perform, and you're just having that natural conversation. So, yeah.
All right. Before we move on, I have one more question for you. So what are there principles or ideas or a lesson that you learned about building hot rods that applies as we build businesses?
Oh, yeah. I would say that, sometimes you have to throw it out and start over. As you take kind of this, you start typically with a vehicle that needs a lot of work, and that's typically not running. And a lot of, you're going to the junkyard to find something. And I think it's really easy as business owners to think, I've got to use everything or keep everything that I started with. Especially you feel a sense of ownership to it. Yeah. And sometimes there's just too much rust, a little bit too much corrosion, and you have to get rid of it. And so I think that's a really good lesson from building hot rods. I also think that, faster isn't always better is another great lesson. You have to look at the vehicle that you're actually trying to build, and was it built for a specific speed? And sometimes they're not. And so I always think of cars, how there's the one little car he goes low and slow, right? Just low and slow. And you can make something phenomenal that, isn't going to beat everybody down the block, but is going to get there with style and purpose, and will be amazing and, run for the next 20 years versus the guy that's, trying to add on all this stuff and make it go really fast, and he loses control and goes off the road. So those are two good ones. Don't keep everything.
Those are great lessons. I love that.
Speed isn't always what you need.
Yeah. I love both those things. Hey, I want to interrupt today's conversation to ask you something. Do you ever feel like you're counting the days to retirement to really enjoy the money you're working so hard to earn? If this is you, I've got some friends I want to introduce you to. SignatureFD. SignatureFD is a different kind of wealth management company that's helping clients enjoy their wealth now while creating security for the future. They have a unique trademark process called Net Worthwhile, which helps clients integrate and activate their wealth in 4 key categories: grow, protect, give, and live. You can take the first step to discovering your net worthwhile with their free quiz. You can find it at signaturefd.com/mygpgl. The link's also in today's show notes. Let's get back to our conversation. So Lisa, as you're leading this rather large enterprise, what are some of the top things that are on your mind or you're wrestling with, questioning, thinking about these days?
Yeah, I think definitely, team growth. I think that's important for us to think about. I think that there's a lot of changes that are happening in our economy right now as a business owner that we have to be very mindful of. We're recording this right after there was another 3/4 of a rate hike increase. And so I think that's a lot of what's on people's minds. And that, of course, goes into, overall marketing changes, because if the economy is changing, then how do you reposition your business to change with that?
Yeah. I spent the last 2 days with real estate companies. So for sure, they're like super tuned in to market changes. Yeah. So let's go into those. Team growth. What does that mean for you? Do you mean adding people, adding depth to your people, adding skills to your people? What is team growth that's bouncing in your head?
all of that, but I think at the moment it is professional development. It's depth to the team that we currently have. We're coming up on being in business for 12 years, and there's a lot of different seasons that we've been through, and each season required a different type of employee because we were also learning. And so sitting here 12 years, there's a lot more complexity to our business. And again, making different types of decisions now that we are not owned by our founders, and we're owned by a private equity firm. And so it's really equipping our team members, but also our leaders with that next level of leadership. We have layers of leadership now. And so what am I expecting a manager is going to be different than what I've expected of a director. And if we look back to 5 years ago, I might have only had a director for a department, or I might have only had a manager in a department. And so now there's a lot more communication that's needed. There is a change in skill set that's needed. And so we're very fortunate that we have a corporate trainer on our team who's phenomenal. Shout out to Sarah. And she is just spending a lot of time and encouraging our team, giving us great articles. We call it First on First. So she helps run that for us. Every first of the month, we are thrown a video or an article, and then as leaders, we all kind of weigh in on what it means to us. And so just doing things like that, or when we get together for our quarterly meetings, spending time around not just what's changing in the business, but what needs to change for us as leaders. And I think that that's a great opportunity to kind of go into a conversation open-palmed and check your ego at the door, because we're going to give you some feedback on, we love you. We think you're awesome. You were great 2 years ago, but we kind of need something different out of you now. And that even goes for me. My role is I just told you my role is CFO. I was promoted in 2015. I'm a much different CFO now than I was in 2015.
Sure. Where have you seen the biggest growth in your team? Like is there a topic or one of those videos that just seemed to instantly kind of take you to the next level? Where have you seen some good pops?
Yeah, it's interesting because really what we're focusing on now as an organization is making sure that we're working smarter and not harder. Being in that startup mode and a really fast growing organization, you kind of feel like you have to do everything all the time. And so you talk about work-life balance and you think you have it all under control, but you start to feel that perhaps I'm stretching my day a little longer. And so we've really been focusing on making sure that we have the right people in the right seat on the bus so that everybody has a very manageable workload. There's actually skill in working less because and this is what we sell. I mean, Belay is, your delegation, the pinnacle of delegation. But it gets hard when the original leaders are there and they're used to doing the thing that they're now supposed to delegate to somebody else. Very similar to your business owners. And so we're spending a lot of time talking about how to have a very manageable workload, delegating more to our team, making sure that we have the right team members there, and just refining those skills that we've built over the last 5 to 7 years with the majority of our leaders. So that's really important to us right now.
All right, this is kind of random, but I'm curious if you have any wisdom here. One of the things that people tend to struggle with when they level up, especially going from like an individual contributor to a manager, or a lot of people are like a player coach, right? And then they go full coach, and they historically have gotten so much like validation from I'll do my bunny ears, the work that they did, right? Working in the business, doing the things, checking the things off the list. And now they're moved into a manager role or a leadership role. And sometimes they struggle to two things: really know where to focus their time because it's not driven by a to-do list anymore. But second is there's an internal battle of if I'm not checking things off the list, how am I creating value? And
Right.
there's a logical, obvious answer that we could give, but it still seems
Hmm.
like a tension, like a growth area that people have to really wrestle through. You know what I'm saying? Does that
Hmm.
ring true for
Oh,
you?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've seen it over and over again. And like you said, even myself, fortunately, I'm a little removed from that now. But there are seasons of growth where I go back down
Yeah.
into the day-to-day activities because I know that's what's best for the team. And I'm even learning not to do that.
Mm,
So, with working with different coaches and consultants, it's who's on the team can I elevate to maybe a specific task or responsibility, and me not always going down because I can do
yeah.
it, right? And
Sure.
so
Sure.
one of our a great hire for us was a director that came in, and he had never done any of the roles at Belay that he was managing. And I used to tell him all the time, he reported to me for a season, and I'm like, I don't want you to know how to do those things. Because the moment you learn how to do them, it's going to be really easy for you to jump in when there's pain on
Yep.
the team. And so
Yep.
continue to stay elevated, continue to stay elevated. And so I think that if you have an individual contributor who moves into that management level and you are leading them, I think they need encouragement from you as their leader that what they are doing is probably strategy and not the day to day operations, and continue to
Yeah.
encourage them because
Yeah.
they are used to receiving feedback and accolades on, hey, you did that project really, really well. And there's going to be an emptiness, and they're going to be trying to find it. And not only can you give them encouragement and positive feedback in their day to day, but I've also found that people who get that satisfaction from an outside hobby, it also can fill something. So
Oh,
I've
interesting.
learned that for me, I miss being able to check something off of a list every day. And so I garden, or I do a craft, or I decorate, because then I have that list and I still feel like I'm doing good work,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
not always on just planning and strategy that I'm not going to possibly see for, a year.
Yeah, that's crazy insightful because I think like I will at times find myself craving a project to do around the house or the yard or what, whatever it
Yes.
is, because I just want to check
Yes.
something off the list and I want to get my hands dirty. I want to see that like tangible kind of progress. So I didn't even know, maybe that's why I was craving that at times. But that, tying some of that external work to fill that gap is a really, really cool idea. I'm glad.
Yeah.
I'm glad you went there.
Yeah.
Lisa, tell me how you're thinking about market changes for your business as you're managing,
Mhm.
especially from your seat in a business that, you know, there's so many external factors, right? That hit all
Yeah.
because you have so many different types of clients.
Yeah.
How do you prepare for, I won't even say the market conditions because there's almost an unknown. It's like we know
Hmm.
something's coming, but we don't know what it feels like right now.
Yeah. Fortunately for us, we have a lot of peace because Belay was created during a recession. We became live, December of 2010. Nobody was thinking about starting a business in 2010. The economy was terrible, but we knew that having a fractional assistant made sense. As companies were looking to find ways to save dollars, they didn't
Yeah.
want to pay for somebody who was full time. Now, this narrative is a little different though, because for many years we had to tell the benefits during that sales cycle. We had to really explain the benefits of working remote. People didn't understand that. We don't have to explain those benefits anymore
Not at
because
all. Yeah,
everybody
that's
was,
interesting.
thrust into that. But what we're seeing right now doesn't concern us because the work still needs to get done. And a virtual assistant is a very flexible resource. It's not just somebody who can only do calendar and email management. These are
Yeah.
people who are highly qualified, who are coming out of very professional jobs. Perhaps they were managing projects. Perhaps, they were an office manager. They might have some really strong marketing skills that can help you and your team. And people are always looking for that, especially to partner with a company who does all the hard work. And that's what Belay does. We're not just a marketplace where you're going to go on and all of a sudden you're flooded because the gig economy right now is so popular. You're flooded. You do a quick little search on one of the marketplace and it comes up with 200 names. And then you're looking at ratings and feedback and, it just gets to be daunting. You come to Belay and you say, hey, I need somebody who's really qualified, who's going to knock my socks off. And we go, okay, cool. We're going to find that person for you. And then we match them. And I don't think that's ever going to go out of style. I don't think, the market's never going to not need that.
Yeah. So you brought this up, market
Yeah.
changes being top of mind right now. How is it affecting your thinking?
Yeah, I think what is different to your earlier point is we don't know where we're headed. I feel like everybody's trying to make a very similar connection to what happened, 14, 12 years ago. But we're not seeing the same thing happen. You just mentioned you were meeting with real estate professionals, right? Everybody's going, okay, what's going to happen? Rates are in the 5 to 6 range now. Does that mean that people aren't going to buy houses? Well, the inventory is still low. I remember when the first rate hike happened, and I've got friends who were, in the real estate or mortgage business, and the catchphrase was, you date a rate, you marry a mortgage. Did you hear that?
No.
It was all over my social feeds, and I think that's true. I think people have realized, oh, well, 5 or 6% isn't all that high. Yes, 3% felt much better. But
Right.
if I need to buy a home because I want to become a first-time home buyer, or I need to make a change, it's not 11% that some of our parents saw or our grandparents saw, 15% back in the day.
Yeah.
And so I think that the market conditions have me thinking about what is it that we're not able to predict. The recession doesn't scare me because we're a great business for that, but does it look different? Are people going to continue to get excited about working remote? Or are they going to feel in times of uncertainty that they need to bring everybody in? Because we didn't have that last time, because everybody was already in. And so they were looking for ways to scale and looking for ways to build economy. And so it's like, absolutely, I like this virtual thing. Will they continue to think that, or will they want people around them because they haven't been able to have that? And so I think that's some of the conditions that we're looking at. Also consultants are coming out of a season where they couldn't be on the road. And so they were having to find new ways to work with their clients, consultants and coaches. What does this mean for them? Now they can get back on the road, but are larger organizations cutting budgets? And so it doesn't matter that they're back on the road again. Are they still going to find that their business needs to be virtual or remote because that's more cost effective to their clients? And so I think that's really where my head is like, what is going to be different?
Yeah. And I think so many people's heads are there. But all we know is like today, right? And so one of the things that I focus on with the businesses that I'm part of is like, how are we constantly in the mode of creating a durable business? Because the minute something like this happens, which we can't predict when or what, but something's going to change, right? There's always going to be something. And so how are we focused internally, right, on how do we become durable so that whatever else out there could be? So that might be, how do we not have too much client concentration that we're dependent on a singular client, or just in a specific niche or industry, like how to diversify the people so that, we've got 2 or 3 people in every seat within the organization, so that if we have turnover there, we've got backup, we're not down. The durability of the business has always been something I learned the hard way. I got caught with my pants down. And so ever since then, it's like, no, we're not playing this game. Durability is going to be utmost importance, even over profitability. That's me.
Yeah,
But I would rather have the durability over, there's always a tension there because we could lean down, not be as durable, but there's a
sure.
cost to that as well.
Yeah. No, I love that. I just wrote that down. I like that word, durability. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Hey, podcast listeners, this is System and Soul Coach Michelle Krolchak here to share a tip with you today that I give to my clients working to gain clarity and control of their businesses. The first phase of working with a leadership team starts by helping them get really articulate with the vision, mission, and values of the business. It's about getting everything out of their heads and aligned as a team. But the real magic happens when an organization puts in the same time and energy into pulling it through the rest of the organization. You help everyone clearly see what you can see and clearly understand their part in helping make it all happen. With clarity comes excitement, engagement, commitment, and probably the most important thing of all, trust. Mind you, it's easier said than done, but it pays off in spades when it happens. I hope you find this tip helpful. Enjoy the rest of the podcast.
Lisa, the third thing you brought up this morning was changing your perspective. Talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, I think there's just a lot that has happened in our world in 2 years. And so it's just changing the perspective of who I am personally, who I am professionally. I'm about to be an empty nester. So I've got, you and I were talking a little bit about that, but I've got, my youngest, which is my daughter, she's going off to college. And so what does that mean for my husband and I? Like you, I got married early. So, celebrating a lot of years together here. And really my perspective in business of what I touched on earlier is what does it mean to work hard, but not excessive? And there's a difference in working hard and being intentional about what you do in your day, but not letting it dictate who you are as a person and letting it control your mental and physical health. And so that's really the change in perspective for me is we spent a lot of years growing the business. We're maturing. I'm maturing as a leader. And how do I just be a great person holistically? You were saying you were craving to check something off the list. And I think so often we feel like we have our professional, at work, I'm known as LZ for Lisa Zeeveld. So this is LZ. And then over here, I become Lisa. But truly, I'm just Lisa Zeeveld. And I want to show up and be authentic and real. And no matter if I'm sitting at this desk or I'm down at my kitchen table, that I'm remembering that that's all just one person. And so that's really the change in perspective for me.
What practices do you have that help you stay in that mindset or battle that tension?
Yeah, I'm still really trying to figure it out transparently. I definitely leverage my assistant a lot more than I used to, making sure that she's protecting my calendar. She's the first one that'll say, no, I actually don't think you should do that. Oh, really?
Yeah.
I love people and I love helping people. There's nothing better to me than encouraging and coaching someone. But, I also need to make sure that I fill my cup first. It's sort of like the silly little airline thing, put the oxygen mask on you first. So my assistant really becomes my coach. And she's like, yeah, you can't do this. Or I see that you have 6 meetings on your calendar because somebody went and squeezed one in. And we have some guiding principles that say you're only supposed to have 4. And so I'm going to go in there and I'm going to move those. Or I was looking at your PTO balance and based on we're halfway through the year. And if I take a look at the time that you've used, you're going to have too much to roll over. And so I need you to actually take some vacation time. Or when was the last time you and Michael had a date night? And so she's really that coach for me. And so that's what I'm leaning into currently. And,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
My coach calls those healthy protectors.
Oh, I like that.
That's a very tangible expression of that. There's also just the people that we have on the outside. Maybe they don't have the direct access to your calendar like she
Yeah.
does, but the people that can just say, hey, have you had a date night? Hey, have you taken some time off? Hey, are you, pushing a little too hard? And to have those people around us that care enough, it's kind of like the radical candor thing, right? They've got to care enough, but be direct enough to say, hey, time out. Let's look in the mirror for a second. I want to stand next to you. What are we seeing? Healthy protectors are so key. We, my buddy, shout out to Robbie Angle. We have a weekly call, or at least text each other, but it's always a very thoughtful check-in, kind of in this lens of healthy protector. Like how are you actually doing? How is your marriage? How is your, your body and your soul and work and the things that matter? And he's got 8 kids, so it takes twice as long for him to get through the kid count as me. But it's a lot, that there's businesses, there's kids, there's marriage, but somebody that has a holistic view that can just watch out for you. And I love, I love even the clarity of the 4 meeting boundary, right? Like, we have, one of my companies has Wednesdays, there are no meetings. You are not allowed to have a internal or client meeting on Wednesdays, right? And it's just space. Let's create space to do the deep work that needs to get done. So I think that a lot of people out there listening could probably, turn this off and then go like, what are the boundaries I need to create that I would want, right? That's, we talk about visionaries of companies, but we're visionaries of our own lives as well.
Yes.
And if we just take the time to say, what do we really want? We can usually create it. Like we talked about with the business, like, what do I want my day to look like? Can you create that? Taking agency over all that. So
and I feel like too many times,
super fun. Go ahead. Go.
No, I was going to say, I feel like too many times that you have a very accomplished leader who they wake up and realize that they don't have the life that they wanted, right? They let life slip by them. And so it's the intentionality of creating space and margin and putting goals in your planner that are not just about growing your businesses, but about growing you and your relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. Too often we talk about goals and we think, what do we want? Instead of what do we want to be? Who do we want to be?
Yeah. Oh, I love that. So true.
I love that frame. LZ, great hanging out with you today. Thanks for sharing your time and wisdom with all of us at System and Soul.
Thank you.
Parting shots. We're going to have Belay's, links and access to that in the show notes here. How do we find you if we want to follow along to what you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. Instagram, at Lisa Zeeveld is the best place to follow me. I throw some good personal stuff up in there and show what my life is like, and you can learn a little bit more about me. No awesome. Welding or building hot rods right now, though. So don't want to disappoint anybody.
I think you need to work on that. That would be really cool to throw in there.
That would be a good check off the box, right? Something to mark off, like I put
Absolutely.
a new suspension in the hot rod today. Check,
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, that's great.
You're gonna have people requesting lift kits and all kinds of things after this show.
Hey, I know the right people.
There you go. Back to delegation. Perfect answer.
Yeah. Thank you so much. This was a blast. I appreciate you inviting me on.
Absolutely.